I'm back. So this is the third video in the series on the purpose of phase 3 and the last one. So there's just 3 videos having to do with the purpose of phase 3, and there was 3 points to it. Basically, the first one was stabilizing your weight so that it stays about the same on a day-to-day basis, with relative ease. So we talked about that in the first video, which I will link to those videos in this article. The second point was gradually readjusting your digestion to larger amounts of food and larger amounts of fat and food groups and stuff like that. That's another gradual process. We talked all about that. And the third point with the purpose of phase 3, I see as a really good time to discover if you have any food sensitivities that may cause you trouble in maintaining your weight. And you may discover foods that without them you can maintain a lot easier. So we're going to talk all about that in this video. So prior to doing the HCG protocol, you may have been in a place where you weren't in tune with your body at all. That's kind of where I started out from. I remember years ago, my brother, who had dealt with a lot of health issues from a younger age, whereas I felt pretty healthy for most of my youth, he used to say things like he would try a new supplement and then he would be able to tell, during that day after, he could tell if his body liked it or didn't, or he would notice very minute changes and how he felt as a result of something that he ate or some supplement he took. And I remember just feeling like, wow, how do you can tell a difference from something like that? I was so out of tune with my body. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was amazed that he could feel those types of things in his body. I just really didn't know what that was like. Later, as time went on and I had some health issues and I started noticing trends, where certain things would consistently make me feel bad and certain things would consistently make me feel good. And then as I've started to improve my eating and just take charge of those things, now I'm at that point where, yeah, I am really in tune with how something makes me feel. I can tell instantly when I eat something if it doesn't feel good. For instance, I'm actually sensitive to a lot of seeds. So like raspberries and blackberries, sadly, because I used to love picking blackberries as a little girl. They're so good. But anyway, the seeds in them really irritate my digestive system. So I really can't eat them for the most part. Raspberries especially will really hurt. Blackberries, same thing. I'll start getting bloating and burping within about a half hour after even having like a half cup of them. So that's something that I wouldn't have been aware of before. Like I would just be eating whatever and then I might feel bloated, but I would have no idea what food it was or why. But now it's like I know when I eat kale salad, I feel great. And when I have these berries, even though they're healthy, for whatever reason, my body doesn't like them with those seeds. So I really did get more in tune with my body over time. And for you guys, phase 3 is a really good time to start experimenting with that. And the reason is you've just spent, 3 to 6 weeks on phase 2 eating super clean, very minimal. Your body has had a chance to get rid of junk, and put your body in a better place so that now when you start putting things back in that it hasn't had in a while, it's going to be a lot more obvious to you how you feel after doing that. So you may find some foods that you eat, they either don't feel good for, shortly after, or maybe later. Maybe it's an issue with your digestion in your intestines. That will, if that feels bad, that will actually take several hours later for you to feel that it doesn't feel good. Or, the scale, that can be another indicator, because when you have something your body doesn't like, it causes inflammation in your body, and that causes retention of water. And so you can have, gains on the scale from that. So those are just a few things that I just thought were interesting, and phase 3 is such a good time for that, to start discovering what your body does and doesn't like. It's kind of interesting to me how, our bodies really do seem to make the best of things. even if it's having to use a bunch of stuff that's not in our best interests. It's kind of interesting to me how our bodies really seem to make the best of whatever scenario that it's in. Even when it's dealing with lots of things that are, maybe not in its best interests. I mean, you could probably live on SpaghettiOs and Diet Coke, and your body will continue living and operating for many, many years, right? You can. But it's not going to be without detriment and consequences, both now and later, right? And, before I removed gluten from my diet, I've been gluten-free for, since February of, my first round, February 2011. So actually over 3 years now, I've been gluten-free. I had no idea at the time when I used to eat it that my body would do much better without it. I didn't have any indigestion from eating gluten. I ate wheat products on a daily basis. I loved bread. I loved pasta. I ate all that stuff all the time. I didn't notice any inflammation. I didn't notice any pain in my joints. I didn't notice any of that. It seemed like when I ate it, I felt fine. And to be honest, I was actually really skeptical when I was doing research online about people with Hashimoto's, which is a condition I have. It's an autoimmune disease against your thyroid, and a lot of women have it. And I was reading that people that have this do a lot better if they remove gluten from their diet. And I was like, I feel fine with gluten. I don't see how that could really change much, But later, after removing it for 3 months, which thanks to HCG, that kind of gave me the strength to actually do the full 3-month trial. They say that type of thing, you need to kind of stay off of it for 3 whole months in order to find out if it's something your body doesn't like, and they're right about that. So I decided not to do, the Melba and Grissini on HCG. Most of us don't. So that just kind of meant that I was gluten-free for close to 3 months, because I did HCG for 6 weeks and then phase 3 for 3 weeks. So it was quite a long time. And I discovered that my body hates gluten. After that, when I would, try having some bread or whatever, I would have horrible, horrible pain in my intestines. It was not a stomach thing, it was an intestinal thing. Several hours later, it would feel like a searing fire in my intestines. Extremely painful. And any time I even accidentally have gluten, like there's been a few times when I had Mexican food at a restaurant that I kind of was hoping, like it seemed like it wouldn't have gluten, but it did, because it's a signature feeling. It's the only time that I experience that feeling is when I have gluten. So I would never have known that, if I hadn't tried that trial. And as a result, my body really is doing a lot better in many ways. So I just thought that was really interesting. And I know it's not just because of, not eating that food for several months, because I can go without rice for 3 months and then have a bowl of rice and I don't get any pain. My body is not sensitive to rice in that way that I can tell. So, so definitely the gluten was a biggie for me. So bringing this back around to phase 3, sorry you guys, I'm a little long-winded. I like to tell stories because I feel like it helps us to get the meaning of something and understand it better. I don't know, that's how I am, and that's why I share my information in this way. But anyway, so back to phase 3. What I'm thinking is there may be some foods or food groups that you thought your body was okay with because you felt fine. Like I said before, when I used to eat gluten, I didn't have any digestive problems with it. It was fine. So there may be foods that you felt were fine that actually maybe your body is sensitive to them and maybe is causing inflammation, which could then be causing trouble with stabilizing your weight and maintaining it. And if you discover what those foods are, and you take them out, you may find that maintaining your weight loss is actually a lot easier. So, very worth figuring out. The other thing I want to mention real quick is that just because like a certain food or what have you causes a large gain in phase 3, say it was nuts or something, doesn't necessarily mean that you're sensitive to that food for all time, and you know that's one of your trigger foods, and that you can't eat it without gaining weight. I've actually had a lot of people report to me that foods that they couldn't eat at the start of phase 3, you know, that it would cause them gains. Oftentimes it's things like dairy and nuts, but a lot of people have said that while they couldn't eat it at the beginning of phase 3, they did find that either at the end of phase 3 or in phase 4, they were able to eat those foods and not have a gain. So that's another thing to keep in mind too, like don't panic. There may be some foods that you're truly sensitive to, but it pays to take breaks from those foods you're suspicious of, but then try them again later in P3 or phase 4, and see if you get the same reaction. And in many cases you may not. It may just be that during that volatile time it was too much, but now it's okay. So that's why this is all an experiment, and that's why I made this whole series on why it's important, because there really, even though there are some rules and principles to follow, in the end, it's never gonna be as specific as phase 2. You know, like with phase 2, it's like, oh, if you eat these certain foods and this certain amount, you're guaranteed to lose weight. With phase 3, it's not quite as specific as that. So it really does mean that you have to be a little more conscious of what you're doing and experiment a little more and be willing to make adjustments. But you can totally do this. I'm not a special person, you know. The place that I came from a sugar addiction. I came from eating an entire half gallon of ice cream, you know, while watching one episode of The Biggest Loser, you know. So I have that history, and for me to be able to make these changes that I've made, I've been maintaining my weight from my last round for 1.5 years. I've been a normal weight now for like 2.5 years. So if I can do this, you can do this too. So anyway, I hope that helps, and stay tuned because we're going to have a whole series of articles on how to go about actually doing phase 3, just some tips and ideas to help you guys guide yourselves through that. Okay, you can find me on Facebook, HCGChica. I am on Instagram, HCGChica, and of course my blog where all of my long detailed posts and videos are, which is HCGChica.com. So, all right, you guys, take care. Bye.